This video is brought to you by the Stephanie Michael Software Company. In this video, we're going to import FBX Assets, 23 minutes. Let's get started. In the previous video, we learned how to use the Univah library to set up a scene. In this video, we're going to be working with external HDRI and FBX Assets from websites like polyhaven.com. Again, remember, everything that you see me doing in this video, you can also do using the Univah Lite software. Please go to the Univah Lite webpage on our website, which is smsoftwarecompany.com. Alrighty, let's work on this scene. As you can see, what I've done so far was I clicked the Delete IBL button to delete the IBL that comes preloaded with the Univah Film Engine. And I simply clicked the Upload button to upload a new IBL. Now, the formats that work with the Univah Film Engine are the EXR format or the HDR format. So as long as you have an HDRI image in either the HDR format or EXR format, you will be able to upload that HDRI directly inside of the Univah Film Engine, and it will light your scenes. As you can see, as I rotate the IBL, the lighting on the 3D model is affected. So, one of the best ways to light your scenes is by actually just rotating the IBL until you get it to match the lighting that you want for that specific angle. Because as you know, in filmmaking, we don't light for every angle. We light for the angle of the camera. So if your camera is positioned at a certain angle, then you want to light for that angle. And then you switch to a different camera, a different angle, you light the scene based on that camera and that angle. That's how it works in all professional filmmaking. Now, I've gone ahead and I've duplicated this 3D model. However, when I duplicated the chair, it did not duplicate properly. If that happens, don't worry, just delete it. In this case, we're going to delete that chair and we're going to go to polyhaven.com and we're going to find another model. But before we do that, since we've duplicated this character, we don't want both of them to look the same. So we're just going to go into our library and change his outfit. In polyhaven.com, let's look for something like a stool. Yeah, the one up there, that's fine. We're just going to download this FBX model. And this is the workflow that you would use when importing your FBX models. You download something from Polyhaven as an FBX, you extract it, and then you go into Univah, you click import, and then you select that FBX file, you click open, it imports, and there you go. Okay, so this model was taken directly from polyhaven.com, and now you see it right here in the Univah Film Engine. Very easy, everything comes in with the textures. You don't have to apply textures manually like you would in Unreal Engine. In Univah, FBX models come with textures applied. Great, this is looking good. Now, we have this FBX model in here. We can position this. You can spend some time positioning things just the way you want it. Again, in 3D, things can be very tricky based on the camera view, camera angle. So that's why in real frame production, you always do things based on the angle of the camera. In the Material Editors tab, if you expand the Materials tab, you're going to see your textures for the selected object. This is how you can import or upload more textures. You can change textures, and it all goes in those tiny little thumbnail squares. And when you hover your mouse over those little thumbnail squares, where you see those textures like diffuse, normal, then you're going to see an enlarged version of the texture. So again, hovering your mouse over those thumbnail squares shows you an enlarged image of those textures. That's very, very, very useful. All right, so we've downloaded another 3D model. I believe at this point we're also going to try to possibly download another HDRI. Yes, and we're going to download this EXR HDRI map, and we're going to replace our current IBL with the one we just downloaded from Polyhaven. So it's like a bedroom, I think, like a loft. Yes, so that's the image we just got from Polyhaven as an EXR file, and we uploaded it to Univah. And as you can see, our lighting has changed. Our 3D models look a little darker now. And so we have to now adjust the rotation of this image based on how it's lighting and affecting our models, okay? And again, everything with lighting is based on the camera angle, okay? So we have to place our cameras and say, okay, for this angle, we will light it this way. We switch to a different camera at a different angle. We say, okay, for this angle, we will light it this way, okay? Alrighty. So we are importing the model we just got from polyhaven. And just so you know, with per object styling, if you select the parent object and you try to use per object styling and you realize nothing is working, just go back to the outliner, select the child object, and then go back to per object styling and you'll see it's going to work. So it's based on child objects. Per object styling is for editing every individual child. So you click on each child object and you have complete control over how each child object looks. Okay, so that's really amazing because in other softwares, in legacy DCC, you would have to do a very complicated node graph setup to have this kind of control that you see in Univah being done so easily. Right now, I did just increase the exposure to about 3, which again, in the previous video, I said I never do. I typically never go above a 1.6 exposure. And again, like I said in the previous video, for those of you who don't know, exposure is how much light the camera lets in. So at a 0 exposure, that means the camera is saying, hey, I don't care if it's broad daylight outside, don't let any light into this camera, okay? Alrighty, this is the part of the video where we prove to you that the Univah Film Engine and everything that you see me doing right now on the screen is being done on a basic university library computer with shared graphics. This is not even a dedicated graphics computer. I'm using shared graphics on a very simple library computer, and we are about to create very high fidelity renders that render in 4K, 6K, even 8K. Alrighty, let's keep going. So with our exposure now above 3 and our directional light, I believe is still set to 3 for intensity for watts. Let's look at our contact shadows and see if we should increase the intensity, the radius. Let's just play with this a little bit to see what kind of look we're getting, okay? Alrighty, what do you think? I think this is looking good. Let's move on. Right now, we're going to explore how to change the background color of your scenes and how to also activate different types of grids for your 3D scene. So we have something called the World Editor settings. Using this, you can choose what kind of grid you want to show, and you can also choose the background color of your scenes. This can be very helpful for look development and also just for making really cool different types of backgrounds for your images. So it's very simple, very straightforward, but this is how you would change the background color of your scenes if you ever needed to do so. All right. And again, that's in the World Editor. And now that we're done with that, we can just close it. We can just get rid of it. Okay, great. And let's go ahead and bring back our IBL. And we can blur that out. And of course, you've seen us rotate the IBL. You can see the effect that this has on the lighting. And I believe going to about 71 worked really well. 7 was nice too. This is really good lighting for these 3 models. But I don't like the shadowy shadows on the left side of the face, so I'm gonna just put 71 because I like this nice bright window that's behind them. A lot of light into the scene, so I love that. Okay, let's go ahead and do some test renders. Now that we are full screen, oh, by the way, to go full screen and to hide the UI, just press the escape key. And now we can do some renders. I'm just going to place these renders on the desktop. We're going to do 4K, not EXR, but PNG. And there we go. Let's see how this looks. I think I'm also going to do another render. Okay, we have our success message there. But I think I want to do another render with an actual camera. In the previous video, we did a lot of renders, but I never showed you how to add a camera, a real world Hollywood camera, and how to look through that camera and how to render from that camera. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So I've added a camera. We're looking through that camera. And because we're looking through the added real world Hollywood camera, we can choose a resolution gate, a film gate, directly in the camera settings, which are in the attribute editor. And by editing these camera's attributes, we can put custom resolution gates. And then we can render exactly that. So this is really, really helpful. Okay. And now if we press render, it's going to render exactly what we see in the viewport. So that's really, really great. Univah really takes the guessing out of things. You don't have to guess if your final render is going to look like what you see, because it absolutely will. So this is the first render, and it's looking good. And this is the render from the camera that we added. And we can see the resolution gate there. So that helps us with cropping, and when we're doing our editing, we can know exactly where to crop. And so that's really, really good. The resolution gate, film gate, that helps you with a lot of editing. When you're editing your film, you know exactly where to crop and things of that nature. Okay, great. So of course, all the Univah cameras come labeled, which is very cool. So this is a 35 millimeter camera, Univah film camera, and our 70 millimeter also is labeled. So that's a very cool branding there. All right, and you can of course add as many cameras as you want. Okay, cell shading rendering style is very interesting because we give you all of these different parameters to tweak so that you can make this look however you want. You have a lot of control over the non-photorealistic rendering styles. But of course, let's go to Sketch, which is my favorite. And let's take a look at Sketch. The thing about Sketch mode is that when you switch back to Sketch, you have to understand that the directional light being at an intensity of 3 is never enough for Sketch mode. So let's increase it back to 10. Yes. So just remember, of course, it all depends on the look you're going for with your film. But for me, having the directional light at anything less than 10 when I'm in sketch mode, to me, does not look very production ready. So I always boost it back to at least 10 when I'm back in sketch mode. And when you switch back to physically based rendering, you're going to realize that the scene is now kind of washed out because we did increase that directional light intensity back to 10, and it was at 3 before. I'm going to change the sun direction, but before I do, let me take a look at our notes because I wrote the current direction of the sun in our little Univah Notes app. That way, as I tweak the lighting in Sketch, when we switch back to PBR, I need to be able to go right back to the exact sun angle settings I had before. So this is the cool thing about the Univah Film Engine. The lighting, everything that you do for Sketch, for PBR, for architecture style, for paint, it looks completely different sometimes. So you have a lot of variety in terms of how to light the exact same scene. So this is the final render and it looks okay. To me, it's a little dark. Sketch looks best if you're going for the Nickelodeon look. Sketch looks absolutely beautiful, stunning when you increase the brightness. So I'm going to go to the sketch settings and I'm just going to take that ambient and I'm going to boost it up. Okay, but before I do a final render, take a look at the fact that our exposure for sketch is at 0, but when we switch to PBR, we can still see. So that lets you know that what you do in one setting, in one render style, doesn't translate to the other rendering styles, which gives you an incredible amount of control over how you light a scene. So you can essentially make sketch look totally different using the settings and then switch to PBR and it's a completely different rendering style, totally different settings. So you have PBR exposure, which is different from sketch exposure, which gives you just so much variety in terms of the look of things. So I wanted you to see that. The exposure in PBR affects only PBR. When you switch to sketch, sketch will not have the same exposure. So you see this looks so much better. This is much brighter than the other image, this one. This one, brighter, looks better, looks like a Nickelodeon film. It's amazing. So these are some techniques that I'm teaching you how to get the best out of the Univah Film Engine when you're rendering a non-photorealistic rendering style, which happens to be my favorite. I love PBR, don't get me wrong, but I just love non-photorealistic. It's just like my favorite thing in the whole world. So I'm like a huge fan of that. Yes. Okay, and I'm like obsessed with these contact shadows and trying to get them to see if it will look good in Sketch. I don't know. So let's render an image out very quickly and let's see if we want to add our contact shadows in the engine itself or if we want to render without contact shadows and then just go to like ChatGPT, upload the image and say, hey, ChatGPT, add contact shadows for me. And it's going to do that. Or Nano Banana, so that's what we're doing now is just using all of technology to our advantage. And yes, for those of you who don't know, ChatGPT does do that. I have tried that and ChatGPT did a great job. I uploaded a 3D render to ChatGPT and I said, add contact shadows. And it added contact shadows and it looked amazing. So Chat will do that. So will Nano Banana. And it's free. Okay. All right, so going back now to PBR, you guys already know what we have to do. If we're going back to PBR, we turn off the directional light. This is how it looks with the IBL only. This is the IBL doing the heavy lifting right now for lighting this scene. And because the exposure is set to above 1.6, we have it set to currently 3. It's looking pretty bright. It looks really good, very natural. Okay, so that's the whole purpose of the Univah Film Engine is to make sure you have lighting that's natural. And, and just so you know, when if you want to make things look like an Unreal Engine render, then yeah, boost up your directional light to like 1,000 and it's going to be washed out like most Unreal Engine renders. But that's not what we're going for here. So if you want your scenes to actually look good, make sure your exposure is not at 0 because at 0, no matter how bright your lights are, it's not going to let any light into the camera. That's what exposure means. So we can go right back to about 1.6 for exposure and then lower that intensity for the directional light to 3 to get a more natural look. Okay, so there you have it. These are some lighting techniques based on real world lighting. Okay, great. And to conclude the video, we're just going to upload another IBL. And this is more of like an outdoorsy scene, but as you can see, our scene looks kind of dark. And I want it to look more like a nice, bright, sunny day because that's what the IBL looks like. So the best way to do that really is just to boost up the exposure. But when you boost up the exposure, you have to understand exposure and intensity work together. So decrease the intensity of your light, which in our case is the directional light. So I've put it down to like 1 because our exposure is so high. And now we have a nice daylight looking scene. It looks very natural. Nothing's blown out because we are using the exposure correctly and the light intensity correctly. A lot of people don't do that. They'll boost up the exposure and totally forget that they need to decrease the light intensity as they increase the exposure. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.